Welcome to another webinar, another edition D91 webinar. Great to see you all here. We are being led by an amazing host who loves penguins even more than I do. She is from Chiltern Speakers and from Ascot Speakers. Please welcome none other than Jacqui Hogan.
Hello, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen because I've put a lot of information onto PowerPoint slides so you don't have to take notes. By the end of this session, you will know everything there is to know about levels 4 and 5 and what they're for. So let me just share my screen. Share. Okay, can you all see my screen? Yep. Fabulous. Well, that's me, Jacqui Hogan. I am, for my sins, and have been since it was first introduced, a Pathways Guide and Ambassador. And I have to tell you is that when I started out, I thought Pathways was pants, and I am a total and complete convert. And as an experienced Toastmaster, I'm amongst that group who think, what's the point? Well, I've now been involved in Pathways for many years, and what I'm going to talk about today is levels 4 and 5, because people get through the first 3 levels and then they say, oh, what do I choose? What do I do now? Why do I have to do this? So what I'm going to do is talk through level 4 and then level 5. But what I'm going to start off with was just how they fit into the overall Pathways picture. You probably know that it's a pyramid. It's Pathways, where level 1 is these kind of initial stepping stones. Level 2 is a reflection on your style, how you do things, how you speak, how you lead. Level 3 is about information gathering. And what I'm going to talk about today, which is level 4, is where you basically build your skills. These are additional skills you need to kind of polish what you've already learnt in Pathways. And level 5 is your opportunity to demonstrate your expertise in whatever your pathway is meant to be. Right, how does that work in practice? Well, in practice, as I say, level 4 is about building skills. There is one path-specific project and there is one elective project. It's only 2 projects. They both involve speeches, but they also involve doing work. And obviously, once you've done those 2 projects, you need to submit your level 4 completion. I remind people of this because quite often they forget. Okay, as I said, there are a total of 10 path-specific projects. And the reason there's 10, not 11, is because 2 of the paths actually have the same specific project, and that's motivation strategies and team collaboration. These top group are unique to the particular pathway that you're doing, and they are specific to the particular pathway. So they are intended to help you build specific skills depending on what pathway you've selected. These 3 are not only specific to the paths, but they are also options. And I'll come on to talking about the options as well as the specific projects. The reason I've separated them out is because these are all also electives, so you can do those anyway, even though they're specific to these 3 projects. It does mean that for these 3 projects, you've got one less elective to choose from. By the way, if you want to ask questions as we go through, or I'm equally happy to take questions at the end. Okay, I'm not looking at the chat, so just put your hand up if you want to ask a question. Okay, so what exactly are these projects? Well, I'm going to talk about let's go through the elective projects first. As I mentioned, these 3 are specific to 3 pathways, but they are also elective options for all of the others. Now, I'm going to go through them individually rather than read them out. But if you know what pathway you're on, you'll probably recognise which ones they are. Okay, so the specific projects. The first one I'm going to mention is Motivate Others. That is specific to the motivating strategies and the team building pathways. In order to do this is that you have to build and motivate a team of 3 to 4 people. Now, I mention this because I often get asked, well, what's a project? Well, a project is where you want to do something using people to achieve a specific aim. And this is a project, project, if you like. And if you haven't, if you are doing one of these 2 pathways and you haven't done a project before, it's probably worth talking to someone in your club who may be able to help you. It is different from the high performance leadership project. It's a much smaller exercise and you don't have a guidance team. But one of the things you will be doing, which is why you're going to have other people working with you, is that you're going to be asking them to do something called a 360-degree evaluation. Now that's a form where basically they rate you, and they can do it anonymously, or they can give their names. Mostly it'll be people you know, and they're normally pretty nice. But what it will do is it identify areas that you need to work on. And that really forms the basis of the speech that you deliver with this particular project. The next one, communicate change. Essentially, it's about having a plan for communicating a change. It could be a change within your own work environment, or it could be a change within your club or area if you're an area director, or even division if you're a division director. It's about understanding what you need to tell people when a change is coming along. And as always, deliver the results in a speech. Okay. For this project, which is very similar to the last one, it's about creating a plan that you want to deliver in terms of a change, and actually sharing the management plan with your club in the speech, not what we were talking about before, which is communicating how the project itself went. This is about creating a plan and then sharing the plan with a group. You don't have to work with other people on this one. Power of humour in an impromptu speech. This is actually my favourite project, and I have now done it 5 times. It's great fun. If you want to improve your table topics, particularly if you're going in for a contest, this is a really good project to do. Because essentially what you're going to be doing is collecting together some anecdotes and stories and using them to improve how you deliver a table topic. What the project involves is actually keeping a story list of just things that you think are amusing, that you think will be amusing for the audience. But it means that you learn to be able to deliver them or remember them when you're doing a table topic or an impromptu speech. It's really good if you're doing a lot of presentations in management meetings, because then you've got things that you can always communicate that reflect well on you. Okay, this one you do 2 short impromptu speeches. They're slightly longer than the normal. No, they're not. They're normal table topics length. It's not a huge project to do, but it's very good if you want to kind of step in and do a project at short notice. But you do need to have created your stories and anecdotes first. Okay, these are the 2 leadership projects at level 4. This one, leading in difficult situations, which is really about putting a project plan together and then identifying the things that could hold that project up. In other words, things that could disrupt your plan, things that could make the plan difficult to achieve. I heard one of my members do this particular project recently, and it could be quite useful, for example, if you're going to be doing something like an open house, which is what she was doing it on. So that's quite a good project to that. It doesn't have to be something huge, just something where you have to put a project plan together, because it's not just a task, but you can actually explore with the club what disruptions there might be and how you might deal with that. Leading your team, this project It's about a small group of, in this case, 2 to 4 people. So that could be the same sort of thing, like organising a contest, organising an open house, or even something that you're doing at work. Incidentally, if you're doing a project at work and you're going to involve the people, you do need to bring Toastmasters into it somewhere, not just the even if it's just to present the speech of how you did it. So that's that one. Is this all making sense? Good. Okay. Improvement through positive coaching. This is really, it's not just mentoring someone, it's actually where you teach somebody a specific skill. And that's really the difference between coaching and mentoring. And so it could be someone in your club, it could be someone outside of Toastmasters. It's not just about putting the plan together, it's actually doing the coaching and then delivering a speech on how it worked for you. Managing a difficult audience. I've not done this as, no, I've done this as a project in Toastmasters, but I've done it many times outside of Toastmasters, and you really do need the skills for that, where you've got a disruptive audience or people who don't know what, who actually want to air their own views about something that might be contrary or completely irrelevant to what you're speaking about. This is actually quite a fun project to do in your club, if you do it that way. And that is that although you're preparing a 5 to 7 minute speech, is that you've got to allow additional time for those disruptions and how you handle it. If you've got people in your club who like doing role play, it's very good to get them involved in this. Okay. Managing projects successfully. This is a project, as you can see there. It's fairly similar to the High Performance Leadership Project, but you don't have a guidance committee. And it's quite a lot of work, actually, this project. And it's about having a project with people that you're involved with, delivering 2 speeches, one to explain what the project is before you do it, and then one about the experience. Now, if you do it for a work project, it could be part of a bigger project that you're using that for. And that's quite a useful way of linking together what you're doing at work, in your workplace, and what you're doing in Toastmasters. PR strategies. This is a really good one if you want to put together a public relations strategy for your club. You can do it outside of your club as well, but it's actually a very good thing. All clubs should have a public relations strategy, so it's a very useful project from that point of view. And that, I think, is level 4. So the specific projects. Now there's elective projects, 3 of which you've now already seen. These are the fun ones: building a social media presence. This is really about understanding the different kinds of social media, and then establishing it, which could be setting up a Facebook page, it could be setting up a website, it could be publicizing a particular event, all of which is highly beneficial both to your club and to you when you take those skills back to your workplace. Podcast. I've actually done quite a lot of podcasting, and this is kind of fun. Everyone thinks it's really easy, but it isn't. But it's a good way of, again, using this particular project to help your club. 60 minutes of podcast content is quite a lot. But you're not going to be delivering all of that to the club, but obviously it needs to be there if people want to see it. You're going to do a short introduction, usually about how you went about creating the podcast and what it's about, and then play a 10 to 12 segment of your podcast. So it's one when you're actually presenting back to the club that you're going to need your VP education to schedule a longer speech time for you. But if you're working in any kind of industry where podcasting is important, if you're writing books, incidentally, I've written several books and my publisher has asked me to create a podcast for each of them. So I know how much work's involved in this. It's a good project to do. Okay, managing online meetings. If you're doing meetings in your club, or you're doing meetings for usually the area, or if you're going to be managing something like a COT or one of those sorts of online meetings, it's actually quite a good project to do, because you're going to have to be doing it anyway. So why not do it and get credit for it at level 4? Q&A session. The purpose of this is to be able to understand, rather like managing disruptions in a meeting, is how to manage questions and answers about what you're speaking. Now, you do need to be an expert, and it needs to be something that is likely to be of interest to your audience. Otherwise, you won't get many questions and answers. If you're a professional speaker and you're speaking outside of your club, this is also quite a useful project to do, because you can do it either as a face-to-face Q&A session or an online Q&A session. But again, it's one of those things that people think is easier than it actually looks. Okay, and writing a compelling blog, also useful for your club. There's nothing attracts guests quite like blogs. And there's a whole load of different kinds of blogging platforms out there. So it could be your own website, it could be LinkedIn, it could be Facebook, it could be Instagram, or whatever platform you want to know. They do require you to post at least 8 times in a month. So it's quite an intensive project, and then deliver a 2 to 3 minute speech, very much on how was it for you. Again, one I've done several times. I like writing blogs. But again, it's one of those things that's not as easy as it looks. Okay, level 4. Any questions? A lot of skills to be developed as part of that. Now, level 5 is about demonstrating your expertise. So it's no longer about what you've learned, what you're learning. It's about being able to put back and show and demonstrate what skills you've learnt and how your experience has enabled you to use those skills. Okay, right. Again, it's two projects, a path-specific project and an elective project. Okay. There are 8 specific projects. Some of them are duplicated. As you can see, dynamic leadership and team collaboration both require you to do the project lead in any situation. For effective coaching, innovative planning and persuasive influence, you will be faced with the compulsory project of high performance leadership. I think it's a lot of work. I've done it once. I'm not particularly keen on doing it again. But if you've not done project management before or have limited experience in it, it's one of the best projects to do, to give you that rounded experience, not just of how to set up and run a project and manage a team to deliver it, but because you've got a guidance committee, is that you can use the expertise of other people when it comes to how to develop and run a project. Again, you can do it either in Toastmasters or outside of Toastmasters, although you do need to have, I think, one person, one Toastmaster on your guidance committee. Okay, so what are they like? Okay, well, there are 6 elective projects. Again, these 3 projects in green are optional. So there's 3 new elective projects, which is left. I'll come on to talk about those in a little bit more detail. Okay, I'm going to go through the elective projects first this time. Lessons learned. Now, don't choose this project unless you have already chosen to deliver a large project in one of the level 4 electives or compulsories. Because the idea behind this is that it's the last part of a formal project. And that is, how did it go? How do you manage the feedback and so on? Now, I've done this outside of Toastmasters a few times. It's an extremely valuable exercise. So, for example, if you've run a project at work, you could run this, you could pick this particular Toastmasters project to help you, give you some guidance on how to get the most out of the feedback from the project that's completed with your team members and so on. It's another 360-degree evaluation if you haven't already done that as a previous level 4 project, that is. But it's actually very useful. The next one is moderator panel discussion. Again, you can do this online or offline. I've done it online. It's very, very useful. You do need to have at least one Toastmaster on your panel, because they are going to be your evaluator. This is one of the few projects where you're not actually going to do a speech as part of the project. It does confuse a lot of people, but again, it's quite a lot of work because you've got to set up the panel, choose a topic. And usually a panel is going to consist of experts in the particular topic that you're moderating the discussion around. Okay, ethical leadership, which is again another elective project. And this is really about understanding your own ethics, developing a framework for yourself, and then organising a panel discussion around ethics, followed by a Q&A. Which means, yes, it sort of includes the previous project, which is moderating a panel discussion, along with developing and discussing ethical frameworks. I've not done this project. I know a couple of people who have, but it depends on really what interests you. For example, if you're working in the voluntary sector, you might find this project a very useful thing to do, particularly with people from your voluntary organisation. Leading in your volunteer organisation, which also obviously includes Toastmasters. And what most people do with this project is they serve on a Toastmasters committee as a committee member for at least 6 months. Do a 360-degree evaluation of your leadership skills. So it really applies to doing the sorts of roles like president or VP Ed, because otherwise it's less of a leadership role. Create a succession plan, which is something we should all be doing if we're club officers, and then give us a reflective speech back. So that speech could be, for example, at your AGM, explaining what the role was, what you did, the sorts of challenges that you had and which ones you overcame and which ones you struggled with. Okay, prepare to speak professionally. Again, I've done this a few times, but I do keynote speeches outside of Toastmasters. And what I tend to do is I've done it online and face-to-face, is just make sure that you've got a Toastmaster present to evaluate you, which online is pretty easy. It's more of a challenge in a face-to-face situation. High performance leadership, I've talked a little bit about. It is quite a lot of work, but it is one of the best ways to develop your core project management skills. Because you've got a guidance committee, as I say, you're going to be getting expertise from a lot of other people as well. Again, it's 2 speeches. Okay, specific projects, team building. This is specific to motivational strategies. Basically it's about building a team building event. I've not done it in Toastmasters, but I've done it outside of Toastmasters a few times. It's quite useful, for example, if you're an area director and you want to build a cohesive team of your presidents and VP Eds. Likewise, if you're a division director, it's quite a good exercise to do. The other thing is that it's also useful if you're the president of a club to actually help build your committee. So it's quite useful from that point of view. It is intended for you to design and build a team building event, which could be a meeting of the people of your committee or your group or whoever you're working with, to use some team building techniques, of which there are several listed in the Pathways Project manual. Develop your vision. Again, this is very useful for presidents. particularly at this time of year when you're developing your club plan. And it's a way of leading that. But if you're not in that role, you could use this as a way to develop a vision for, say, your career or your personal life. Or if you're leading an organisation, it could be a way of developing that. Again, it doesn't have to be done in Toastmasters. Lead in any situation. Again, this is very similar to leading in a voluntary organisation, but it's intended to give you the option of doing it outside of a volunteer organisation as well. So it could apply to your life outside of Toastmasters. Okay, manage successful events. Very useful if you're organising a club contest or area contest. It's a good project for this, or any other kind of special event that you might be organising. And this I've done a couple of times, which is live your message with humour, which is really about delivering a keynote speech. But if you're doing the humorous speech pathway, it's a way of learning how to put humour into a serious business or otherwise speech. It's a very, very useful skill, and one I try and practice as much as I can. Okay, that's the projects. It's not as many as you think until you actually go through them individually. But the most important thing to remember is that is try and choose the projects that are relevant to your particular pathway, to your particular experience, and what you actually want to develop and be able to express as skills in the future. Angela, you have a question. I hope I didn't ignore it for too long.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Actually, I have two questions. I'm in strategic relationships, which is one of the precarious ones.
I've done
And
that one.
I noticed that in level 5, the specific project is one is leading in your volunteer organization, and in the elective projects, one is leading in your volunteer organization. Is that one and the same, or do you do that same
It
thing?
is. Some of the electives are compulsory projects in one or two of the paths. You can't do they are the same project, and you can't do it twice. You have to pick something else.
Okay. Okay, and then also, would you please describe again and tell us what it entails, the 360 evaluation? I'm not clear on that.
Right. 360 evaluation is essentially where you're asking your peers, people who work alongside you, your team, people who you are managing, and your superiors, people you're reporting to give you feedback on your leadership skills. There is a specific form that Toastmasters provides to give out to people, to ask them to complete it and give it back to you. You can do this anonymously through get somebody else to collate the results for you. The form that Toastmasters use is very similar to one I've used in corporate life to get 360-degree feedback. But the idea is that you get a third party's view about how you led, how you communicated, and so on a particular project.
Okay, and are there any specific number or not below 10 or?
No, I think they normally suggest with this for Toastmasters Pathways projects between 3 and 6. But obviously, if you're doing it at work, then the more people, the better.
Okay, thank you very much.
Martin, you have a question.
Yes, thank you very much. This is very interesting. This is the first time I've ever seen a level 4 and level 5 workshop, so I'm delighted. Something that I recommend to everyone, and there may be some VPEs here, there may be some mentors. If you've got somebody starting Pathways, the first thing you do is you get them to take the quiz, so that when they're choosing their path, take the quiz, answer the questions, and the top 3 are the ones you should be looking at. But once you've chosen your path, or even before you've chosen your path, look at level 5.
Yes.
Always look at level 5. For somebody who's starting off, don't ever try to put in a high performance leadership pathway, because you will get stuck. Some of the HPLs are so, the high performance leaderships are so complex, they need a 6-month run at it. You need the guidance committee as well. And in fact, it's usually 3 speeches, because you're giving an introduction to your club, you're doing the same with your guidance committee, and then you're giving a final presentation to your club. So I think it's imperative that you go straight to level 5 on almost everything to clear what's there.
I would go even further than that, Martin, because I absolutely agree with you, is that before, certainly do the assessment, because even if you don't agree with the assessment, it's telling you a little bit about the content of those pathways from the questions you've answered. I would also recommend, unless you're really, really new to this, is to go and have a look at all the projects, all the compulsory projects in the pathway that you're thinking of doing, as well as level 5. And just so that you understand what you're committing to, and to make sure that that is what you're expecting to have to learn. It's one of those things. I wouldn't suggest people shy away from the high performance leadership. It depends on what they want to know. I mean, if they want to become a better project manager, then that's a really good project to do. But you're right. Be aware it's a big project and can take, it's rare that it takes less than 3 months. And so it's going to be 3 to 6 months commitment.
And the other point is that you mentioned the 360 degree. The form that Toastmasters produce, like very many Toastmasters forms, is almost impossible to fill out. It is so complex. It involves so many questions. And I have to say, I have never had the stakeholders report back in total, ever. They get stuck on the form and they can't be bothered.
I've not had that experience, but I've done 360 degree assessments in corporate life as well, and the forms are just as bad. That's not necessarily mean that they're all good, but it tends to be a complex thing. And I think even if you don't get 100% of the questions answered, it's still giving you feedback, so it's still worth getting. Julie.
Yes, I'd wholeheartedly agree with Martin on the HPL thing. My first pathway had it as a obligatory level 5. It was shocking when I got to it. I thought, I'm never going to do this, but it was a huge learning curve. So you do get an awful lot out of it. It forced me way out of my comfort zone. I've got something to add and something to ask you. The panel discussion, we've done it at 2 different clubs, 2 different people, just before the elections at the end of the Toastmaster year.
Oh yeah.
And have run it so that the panel is composed of someone who can speak on each committee role, and the audience has a chance to ask questions and so on. So it does a twofold thing there. It gets that project done, and it also
really good suggestion.
It really worked well. So other people might want to take that away. And twice now I've come across people who are very keen to do level 5 and sometimes level 4, but they want to use projects that are historical. They said, oh, I did that, a couple of years ago. I'll just give a speech on it. There's no specific guidelines that I can find that say it must be recent or it must be done this year. But I'd like to have a definitive, no, it's got to be current, recent, especially when there's a 360 degree. You can't get people from a couple of years ago to so how can I speak to people like that?
There is no restriction. I think that's the first thing I'll say. Having been asked that question myself, I would recommend that people do it on a project that's at least recent enough to get decent 360 degree feedback.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean. There's a lot of people who try and cut corners when they're doing pathways projects.
Oh, because people think level 5 is just another speech, and it's always way beyond just a speech.
Same at level 4.
at level 4 also, but you're sort of, I mean, like the disruptive audience, you're sort of forced into it, whereas level 5 is more up to you.
Yeah.
So you have to, you know, be honest and upfront. But yeah,
Well,
that's always a tricky one, I find.
Perhaps the way to approach it is to remind people that it's about demonstrating their expertise based on what they've learnt up to then in pathways. If they're using a historical project, that is not going to do that.
Okay, thank you. Good tip.
Okay, so just to remind people, level 4 is about building skills, it's about learning. Level 5 is about demonstrating what you've learnt. And the final thing I wanted to mention about doing that is please don't forget to reflect on your path to complete your path. You will complete level 4s and 5s when you submit the level completion. You will not complete your path until you have done the reflect on your path. So many people forget that. It's not a big issue unless you're going for your DTM, in which case it matters. Okay, any other questions? Stop sharing my screen. Okay, I hope that was useful. It was quicker than I thought it was going to be. I will share my slides because there's a lot of information on them that will save you ploughing through the manuals like I did. So I'm not sure how we do this. I think if I send the slides to either Grace or Debbie, that they will share them with you. But apart from that, yeah. Carol, don't be put off by HPL. It's a really good project. It's just a lot of work.
It's time consuming as well, as you said, because you have to have, I think, 6 committee meetings. So you have to have an advisory committee, of which one at least should be a Toastmaster. And you must have 6 committee meetings. Well, you can't have them, you know, sort of one every 3 days. So it's pretty much one a month or once every few weeks. So it's yes, 6-month project at least, but really does develop you, really develops you.
Yeah, I mean, I've spent most of my life running projects, and I did the HPL project on. I actually did it on a project I was doing as area director, and I found it immensely useful. I learned all sorts of things that I didn't know about project management just because I had a guidance committee who had a breadth of experience that I didn't, or in industries that I didn't. So, but
Thank you. I just wondered, if you're sharing the slides, do you need our email addresses, or can you get that from registration?
I think we can get that from registration. Yes, I will make sure that happens. Grace, is that something that we can do?
Yes, I think it is. Yes.
So
This, just to add, this recording will also be available on YouTube, so we can send that link out as well. And
okay.
Angela has a question. She's had her hand up for a while.
Angela.
Yes, just a quick one. I was confused. Is there also a reflect on your path at level 4? I was confused
No.
with the conversation. Only
you finish level 4, submit it. You finish level 5, submit it, and then you will have completed level 4 and 5. To actually round off your whole path and get credit for having become the expert on that pathway is that you have to do a reflect on my path. It's a 15 to 20-minute speech. The idea is that you can share back to your club or clubs what you've learnt on completing the path, which bits you thought were useful, which bits you thought were could be changed, which bits you struggled with or overcame obstacles about.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Actually, I really romped through those slides, didn't I? Okay. Are there any more questions, or hopefully see you at the next presentation?